Hey guys, Matt Rogers here. I'm a self-published author from Melbourne, Australia, and this is one of the first ever long format interviews I've done with Launch Control. So thanks guys for having me and enjoy.
Matt Rogers, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Right, so before we get started,
Yep.
I have to run through the numbers
Okay.
because some of these are just absolutely insane.
Okay. Yep.
All right, so nearly 250,000 in sales,
Yep.
82 million pages read,
Yep.
and nearly $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, you are 20 years old, right?
20. Yeah. 21 in October.
How does hearing that list of figures make you feel?
It's kind of, I never really stopped to think about it. It's a lot of disbelief. Like I don't really believe what I'm seeing. I have always gone from one book to the next, and I don't know. It's just been a constant train from one thing to the next, and I never really stopped to sort of think about the sales. Or I'm just glad that people are enjoying them. So that's just always been my attitude towards it, and I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I can.
That's awesome, man. So for anyone who's not familiar with your story, can you walk us through when you started writing and how you built this career?
Yeah, sure. So it was from a very early age. Like I started reading when I was, I think, 4 years old. My mum's actually got a photo of me reading the first Harry Potter book. I was 5 or 6 or something like that. I was at a bus stop with a little Thomas the Tank Engine hat on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just been reading forever. And then the writing started when I was about 7 or 8. I was also very young. And I'm not really sure what the trigger was that caused it, but it just, I don't know, it must have been something that I've always wanted to do, because I remember it started when my dad brought a laptop home from work. It was $20. He got it from like a clearance sale. It was a Dell, like chunky brick of a laptop.
Yep.
And he brought that home, gave it to me. And then, yeah, I just started tapping away on Microsoft Word and just writing little short stories. And yeah, I would have been 7 or 8 years old, and just went from there.
So at what point did this passion of yours begin to turn into a career?
Okay, so I wrote my first full-length novel when I was 15, and I was 15 or 16. I was in year 10, and it took me the whole year to do it. It was about 100,000 words. It was like a young adult action adventure. I was really into the Alex Rider series at the time, the Cherub series, the teen spy sort of thriller genre.
Yeah.
And I was still, consuming books as fast as I could just in my spare time. And yeah, so I wrote this full-length novel, and that was the first time that I ever tried to write anything that I wanted to actually publish or to put out.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I attempted it. The first time it worked was when I was 18, and obviously started self-publishing on Amazon.
Yeah. So what was that like entering, I believe it's called Amazon Unlimited?
Kindle Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited.
The program, yep.
So you have the passion for writing,
mm-hmm.
and you have the skill. So how do you begin to actually start earning money from your books? Like, can you explain to us what Kindle Unlimited is and how the writing process works within that infrastructure?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll go back because it was a 2-step process. It was when I was 16, it was trying to publish to traditionally publish the long novel that I wrote. So that was called Slayers. And I shopped it around to every agent in Australia and every agent overseas, just anyone I could find. And obviously I was 16, so it was pretty terrible. So I got unanimously turned down.
Yeah.
But that was my first intro into the sort of trying to get something published. And I didn't know about self-publishing then. So that was the first step. And then the next step was sort of going on from there and sort of regrouping and thinking, okay, is there any other avenue that I can take to actually put my work out there? And that was when I found out about Kindle Direct Publishing, that's the self-publishing aspect of it. So you literally just upload your book to Amazon, you get a cover, you get you make a blurb, you basically package it together yourself, and then it's all on you. So, you put it up there, and then it's up to you how you market it, how you get people to find it, how you approach your readers, how you build a mailing list. So it's very different to traditional publishing, where you don't really have to worry about any of that stuff. So, yeah.
So can you remember what it was like when it all started to take off? Like when you started making money from it and you thought to yourself, oh man, like I can actually make a living out of this. Like, can you walk me through what your mental process was like, just even accepting that fact, like, holy crap, like I can turn this into my career?
Yeah, well, so I was 18 when it all first started happening, and there was a process to it. I was in law, first year law at Monash University, did the first semester there, and just didn't like, it didn't grab me. I just didn't enjoy it at all. So took 6 months off in the second semester of that year. So I was still first year university. And that was when I properly decided that I was going to write something that I wanted to self-publish. I wasn't going to shop it around or try and get a book contract or anything like that. I was going to write a military action thriller about a guy who used to be in like a special forces division of the government, and he retired, and then he sort of drifts around the countryside. So I had this idea for the first book, and I put that out in August 2016. So got off uni in June, but I'd already started writing it. So it took me, I think 3 months to properly complete it. And then I was just working every single day, I remember, because I got to the point where I realized that if I could make $5 a day from, writing and self-publishing my own books, I'd be just as happy as if I had a, successful career in law. So that was the point where I decided, all right, I don't even have to be successful at this. I just want to go out there and put something out and, get 1 or 2 sales and see what happens. I just wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And
so
then, yep.
In that original kind of testing phase when you were writing these stories whilst also juggling being at uni,
Yep.
how did you balance that lifestyle of, trying to follow your passion, but also having that fail-safe underneath you, which was studying at university?
Yeah, so I'd got used to writing in my spare time because I did a lot of it during school. But I realized that if I wanted to really give this a shot and, try and make a career out of it, if I could, I'd need that actual time off uni, because I was planning to do it just any break I could get during, uni and work and all that kind of stuff. But I realized that I just needed to balance work and writing, and I had to cut uni out for 6 or 12 months. And then if nothing happened, I'd return, obviously, or I'd change my degree or something like that. But I just needed that concentrated 6 months to really focus everything I had on it and give it a shot. And that's part of what led to the first one doing so well, because I could follow it up straight away with a sequel 2 months later that I just spent all my time working on. So I think that, because you mentioned something about when did it first take off, the first point where I really saw it taking off was when I put the second one out.
All right. So a lot of your early works, I've done some research, and I've looked at a lot of the reviews. And obviously, when you enter any sort of new creative field, it's not going to be a smooth ride, right?
Exactly.
Like, you got to learn the craft, you got to learn the skill and develop that ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge deterrent for a lot of people who want to start off in an area, because they try something out, they put themselves out there, and especially when it's got your name attached to it, you see that criticism come in, and then straight away it's like, whoa, like,
exactly,
I don't want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
So I remember, like, one of the negative comments I read actually stuck with me because I found it quite funny.
Yeah.
And it was for, I think it was your first book, and
I think I know what you're talking
one
about.
of the comments was, reading this book feels the same as being fed 7 courses of hot garbage.
Yep. There's been some worse ones than that. I'll guarantee you. There was, my favorite is when someone said because I didn't put out what my age was. So obviously I'm 18 and I'm pretending to be,
at the time, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm 18 years old and I'm trying to sort of make something of myself. So my favorite negative review is this feels like it was written by a high schooler, because it basically was.
Yeah.
But Yeah, so I mean, I was actually really happy with the first book, and if I'd gone back and read over it and hadn't and thought it was just a complete disaster, I never would have put it out. But I went back and I looked at it after I finished it and I edited it, and I was looking at it and I remember thinking, this is the best I can do at the time.
Yeah.
Like this is the best work I can do. It's not the best work I'll ever do, but this is the absolute best I can do right now, and I was quite happy with it. So I put it out knowing that it wasn't going to be some, unanimously 5-star masterpiece. I just wasn't sure. I didn't know how people were going to react to it. I didn't know, because it's so hard to detach yourself from your own work. So I put it out, and I knew that there would be negative reviews, and I was really surprised actually that most people really enjoyed it. So that was actually quite shocking to me.
Yeah.
But then obviously, the negative reviews come in. I think it's on 3.8 out of 5 average even now. So like
it's worked out.
It was passable, and and I was actually quite happy with it. But of course the negative reviews are going to come in, but I treated it as the best learning experience you can possibly get, because basically I finished the first one and I looked at it and I thought, I've got two options here. I can shelve it and never put it out and work on another one and never know what was wrong with the first one, because it's so hard to look at something from detach yourself from your own work, as I said. So I put the first one out, and I remember just thinking, whatever negative criticism I get from this, I can take and make the second one better. And that's been my whole approach to the writing for the last 2 years, which is, I think, partly how I've got to where I am today, which is where the first one gets criticism, I tweak things, I take it on board. Because there's a lot of them that are, a lot of reviews just said, oh, this is terrible, and just flat out, that's it. So I couldn't take anything from it.
Yeah.
But there was a few that were like, the dialogue was bad in this point, and it was cheesy in this point. So I could look at that and I could go, okay, now I actually see from an unbiased perspective. So I can tweak those things in the second one, and then I put the second one out. It also got, and at the same time, I'm building fans as I'm doing this as well. So there was that. It wasn't all gloom and doom. There was that reassurance there that a lot of people actually really, really liked them. But yeah, it was just a process of elimination. So I put the second one out. I remember the second one was set in Venezuela, because I tried to find out what the worst prison system in the world was.
Yeah.
And I put my protagonist, Jason King, right in the heart of that, in the most corrupt, awful, lawless prison you could ever find. So that was an idea I'd had from the start as well. So wrote the second one, and I got more positive reviews. I got a few negative reviews, not as many as the first one, but it's the same thing. I took them on board. I tweaked the little things that were wrong with the second one, went to the third one, and now I've done 11, 12 novels. So I've had that learning process with every single book, which I think is the fastest way for you to get better at your craft, which is, like you said, there's this roadblock, I think, that separates people from wanting to go and try something really different. And, that especially for me, it was all in my head at the time. You're 18, you're never going to be successful. Your book's never going to do well. No one's going to enjoy it. You're an amateur, blah, 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 blah. You tell yourself everything.
Yeah.
But, so I just accepted that, and I thought I need to use this to get better as I go. And now it's strange that I look back on it and it was like the negative reviews were like the best thing that could have happened, because that taught me so much more about the craft than I could have ever learnt from just looking at my own work and trying to dissect it and not understanding what was wrong with it. The best way to learn is to put it out there and to get people to say, this part's shit. And then and then you can look at it and you go, oh, okay, this part is shit.
Yeah.
So it was just that process, just building as I went from each one. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back, because they're really, terrified to get criticized. And I just thought, look, I'm just going to take it as it comes. And, if anyone enjoys it along the way, that'll be great. And it turns out that a massive amount of people did. So it was, it was good.
Nice. So you didn't let the negative feedback early on get to you personally?
It gets you. Like
Yeah.
it's always the very I remember the very first review rolled in,
Yeah.
and so the first 20 or 30 reviews were all 4 or 5 star. So that was I was riding this wave of, oh my god, my stuff's amazing. It's it's weird to think about it now, but I was sort of so separated from reality. And then the first negative one comes in, and I still remember it was a 2 star, and it didn't really say anything except for the fact that I'd got one of the terms wrong. So I'd called a 3 star. No, I'd called a general in the army a 4 star general, I'm pretty sure, and those don't exist anymore or something. So it was very specific, and so obviously I got that, and I thought, god damn it. So I went, but the best part about self-publishing is that you can make changes as you go. So I went back and
you can actually edit the books.
Yeah. So I went back and I corrected the term, and I just re-uploaded it, and then from that point, everyone who bought who bought it from that day onward would get the revised copy. But the negative reviews came in, and they're always not fun to read, but at the same time, I went in with the attitude that I need to learn how to get better, and the best way for me to learn how to get better is to accept these reviews, is to break them down, to find out what I did wrong, and then to improve. So it's a double-edged sword. It doesn't feel great, but you need it.
And you can see that progression, because as I was looking through, chronologically as the different books came out, you look at the reviews, and slowly it builds from maybe like a 3.6, 3.8, slowly gets higher and higher. And in your latest book that's come out, it's almost got all 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
So clearly you're taking on board that advice and improving upon it.
Yeah, it's a few things. It's I'm building more and more fans. So I have a mailing list now that has 3,500 people on it. So those are people who have signed up to try and find out when my next book is coming out, and all that kind of stuff. So that's part of it. And then the other part is I am every single book trying to improve my craft. So yeah, it's funny now because I go back and I read snippets of the early ones.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just cringe a little bit. Yeah. And but it's just crazy how far I've come in 2 years in terms of the actual writing. Like I feel like the writing now is so different to how I was writing at the start, because this is something I've thought about a lot. So I've also sort of developed my own unique voice, because I think when anyone starts out in something, they are very hesitant to sort of try their own thing. And I remember being similar. I binge read all the Jack Reacher books. There's 21 of them or something. And I wasn't trying to, but my writing style sort of imitated it. So it was very short, choppy sentences, very simplistic writing style, but sort of deliberately. But obviously, the Jack Reacher author Lee Child is an absolute genius at that, and I was not at the time.
Yeah.
But you have to do that. You have to learn from everyone. So I still read all the time. I read as much as I can. And you always pick things up subconsciously, and it was just that process of finding my own voice, going from one book to the next, and just tweaking things as I went. And slowly but surely, I sort of developed my own style. So it's still very fast paced, very action oriented, but I've really come to learn how a structure of a book works now. And it's not something that I've learnt sort of in a classroom. I've just learnt it from just absorbing material and learning from my own mistakes and just building as I go.
Nice. And you can see that progression because, again, a lot of your early reviews kind of discount you as like being the poor man's Lee Child or the poor man's Jack Reacher.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the best part was I was reading them and I was going, yep, that's basically, that's very true. And then, I'd go back and I'd go, oh yeah, that was very like, you could tell it was me being unsure of my own style and just absorbing a bunch of different thriller authors and mashing them together. And I'm probably overly harsh on myself. Like I actually go back and look at the first one and I think that's actually not a bad book at all. But it it has developed over time, and now I'm so happy with my writing style, and it's yeah, I've come a long way from those early days, and it's only been 2 years, so I'm still quite early in my journey, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to take it back a little bit. So the decision you made to effectively drop out of uni, it's not an easy decision for a teenager to make.
Yeah.
Especially, you're studying law, so it's quite a prestigious degree, and just the kind of culture around us at the current moment, especially in Melbourne, it's kind of like you go to uni, and that's kind of the expectation. Like, if you want to be successful or reach some high peak of professional acclaim, it's like, all right, just go to uni, do that. So what was like, I guess the pressure, like, from either your parents or just from your peers or from society in general, where you're sitting down, you're thinking, okay, well, I can make this into something more, but what are people going to think of me when they hear, oh, Matt dropped out of uni?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that was the only reason I did law in the first place, was because I got the high school score for it, the ATAR, and I thought, oh, well, I mean, that just obviously means that I have to do law because I need to be successful, and I need to, that's just the path that I was sort of, I guess, funneled into. But then, yeah, as I touched on before, it was the realization that I could be broke as hell and writing and be way happier than if I was a successful lawyer. And there are a few factors at play. Like I heard about how overcrowded the law market was, and how many people were studying law and how many jobs there actually were, and there was this huge disparity. Like it's not guaranteed you'll get a job out of uni if you study law. So there was that stuff, and then there was also the fact that I had amazingly supportive parents. Like they both saw me writing from age 7 and 8, and there's a good story actually. I remember I came home from it was towards the end of the law semester, and I said, oh Dad, like I'm thinking that I don't want to do law anymore. And I told him about taking the time off to write.
Yeah.
And he was always he and my mum were both so supportive with me about that. They were completely on board. They knew that was what I'd always loved to do. But I came home and I said, oh Dad, like I'm just not enjoying law anymore. Even if I go back, I might switch to like business or something. And he said, yeah, I've always thought that. I knew you were never gonna, see law through to the end.
Yeah.
So he's always known. My mum's always known that I would do something to do with writing. My mum always tells me the story that when I was 8 and 9, I was going around telling everyone that I was going to be a world famous author, and
yeah.
So I mean it was always a little pipe dream.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me through to actually taking the time off uni was realizing that I didn't have to be world famous and I still don't care about that. I don't want to be, I don't do interviews. I don't really, this is sort of one of the first ones I've done.
Yeah.
I just don't care about any of that. I just want to write. So it was that realization that gave me the jump to go, okay, I'll take 6 months off. And at the same time, I wasn't actually, like I didn't officially drop out. I took intermission, which is where, you take a semester or 2 semesters off. I think 2 semesters is the max you can do. So I always kept the door open just in case. Even when the books took off, I took the full year off because that was the most you could do. So it was June 2017, which was the entire year off. And that was when Monash said, you need to either come back or drop out completely. So by that point I'd nearly sold 100,000 copies. So I wasn't going to head back. But I always kept the door open, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. And it was mostly the fact that I knew I could be making no money and still be happy. And I didn't really care what people thought about it, and it's, as it turns out, the first one was a success. So, you don't really get that often. I wasn't expecting that in the slightest. But even if I had to write 10 books and, or 11 or 12, I would have just kept going because I love doing it. I have like no shortage of ideas. So I was just going to keep pushing on and just hope that one of them took off. And I think that was something else, was the fact that, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't usually think about it that often, but something else was the fact that I didn't want the book to take off to make a lot of money. I wanted the book to take off so that I got as many people reading it as possible. Because I honestly thought, I had the first one in my hands and I thought, this is a good book. I want people to see this. So that's part of the reason why I uploaded the first one for 99 cents. So that was part of it, because I just wanted to spread it out.
And so basically, you weren't really chasing the monetary success behind it all. It was more so achieving that childhood dream that you had of, like, being this large author that had a solid readership, and which you do now, because you do have a consistent. So how many people do you have on your mailing list now?
So 3,300 as of a few days ago. So that's all people who have signed up to hear about when I have books coming out in the future. So that just blows my mind. That's so amazing. And
that's just like the dedicated fans, and then around that there's more people who
exactly. There's people who just
anyway.
It's strange how little advertising I've had to do. Because at the start, I always figured, I'd get into Facebook ads, I'd get into Instagram sponsored posts, I'd get into, everything. Because I knew a little bit about that world, not heaps, but because I was young, I figured I'd just work it out as I went along. But I've ended up only ever having to book newsletter promotions, which is, sites like Bargain Booksy and BookSends, and basically these websites where readers sign up when they want to hear about discount ebooks. So, authors will pay $50 or $60 or sometimes more, and they'll be included in the email that goes out where they say, these books are on sale today. You can pick up Matt Rogers' new book for 99 cents. And so I do that at the start of every launch. And that's what sort of had, in the beginning, got me a lot of eyes on me. So I had to take that initial sort of financial hit, not knowing if anything would work. But it comes back to the fact that I just wanted people to read it. And I thought that if I could get it in front of enough eyes, it would start taking off and spreading. And that's what happened. And that also brings criticism with it, because you face the wider audience. But I was willing to take it and willing to learn from it. And
it's worked out for you.
It's worked out very well. I sort of never really stopped to think about how well it's worked out, but pretty crazy.
All right, so now I want to talk a bit more about your actual writing process, because the traditional author perhaps might take upwards of a year to write a single novel, and you're churning out books of the equivalent size every 1 or 2 months, right? So how are you managing to achieve this? Was it always this fast, or how have you streamlined your process to the extent where every month or two you can just release a full-length novel, which for even a well-seasoned writer would be a huge achievement?
Yeah, and that's one of the massive differences between traditional publishing and self-publishing. So with traditional publishing, the standard across the entire spectrum is a book a year, and that's what most people do. There's outliers like James Patterson, who, he doesn't write his own books, but he does one every 5 days or something. But he's basically just a factory by this point. But it was the fact that, so there was obviously the evolution of it. So Slayers in year 10 took me the entire year, and I tweaked things as I went. I've always been a fast typer, so I think that enabled me to get slightly more efficient with each one. But it's strange how much I think I've actually benefited from writing books faster, which is kind of counterintuitive, because I was always of the opinion that the longer you take on something, the better it is. But I saw it in my first book compared to my third book. So the first book was Isolated in the Jason King series, and I wrote that, and I wrote that pretty fast. I wrote that in 4 months, but I finished the actual writing in maybe a month and a half, because I was just so motivated and I was just working on it every day. And I had that draft there, and then I spent 2 months just chopping it up and combing over it, and just changing sentence structures around and trying to mimic all these different authors, and thinking, oh, this doesn't really flow well, so I'll chop it up and I'll shorten the paragraphs, and like by the end of it, it wasn't what I'd written in the first draft, and I didn't realize at the time, but now I go back and look at it and I think it doesn't even feel like I wrote it because I changed it up so much. And then my second book, I had a little bit of a long, combing over it process. And then my third book, I wrote very fast. It was 70,000 words. It's called Reloaded, and it was set on the island of Corsica. And that was when I first introduced Will Slater, who was the spin-off character. And I wrote that very fast. And I went back and I read over it, and I thought, this is fine as it is. I'm learning as I go. If I chop it up, it sort of kills the initial creative burst that came out as I was writing it. So I looked over it. I made tiny tweaks, and then I got it copy edited, which is where they find little mistakes in it, like grammar type stuff. But I didn't get any story editing or structural editing or anything like that. And I put it out, and it was my best reviewed book by far. And then I continued that process as I went on, and I just found that when I entered the flow state, when I was writing, when I'd zone in and just be typing away, I'm hesitant to chop that up and to edit that too much. And Lee Child, I've read interviews of Lee Child. I didn't actually know that he does the exact same thing. He just takes longer with the writing process. So when he hits that final word, he just sends it off. And I don't go that extreme. I comb back and I find story inconsistencies and all this kind of stuff. But it's really, really strange to me how much smoother my books flow the faster I write them. So yeah, it seems counterintuitive, but and the other thing is that with self-publishing, you can go as slow or as fast as you want. So I had that knowledge in the back of my head, the fact that I could put as many out as I wanted. I didn't have to listen to any managers or anything telling me what my schedule should be. And then at the same time, most of my readers through Amazon are sort of reading my books in 2 days and messaging me and emailing me and saying, "Oh, that was really great. I really enjoyed that novel. When's the next one out?" And it's just it's this crazy process where I'll slave away at a novel and then I'll put it out and they'll just consume it. And I don't know if I think it's partly because there's a lot of readers like that on Amazon who have a lot of spare time and can just consume books. But I think also my genre and my writing style sort of plays into that. Like I've always written, page turners, and that's always what I've been going for. Because I've always read those books, like the Jack Reacher series, the David Baldacci, Tom Clancy, just action thrillers, page turners, escapism. So that's always what I've been going for, and I think that might be part of the reason why my books get consumed so fast. But yeah, it's a few things. It's as I touched on. I can write fast, and I like to write fast. My readers want me to write fast because they want me to put more stuff out. And I've also found that the faster I go, the better my writing is. So it's a strange sort of trifecta, but I don't know, I've found it really works. And actually another thing, sorry, I'll keep going.
Keep going.
But I've also found that the faster I go, the faster I improve. And which is because, I've done 11 novels and 9 short reads in the last 2 years. So I've built up that amount of experience in the same time that it usually takes people to write, 2 novels. And I always used to think, that would ruin, because I'm going too fast, that would ruin, my ability to write well.
Yeah.
But I've actually found it's the opposite. The more I do, the better I get.
It's almost like you can spend 2 months on something and deliver something that's going to be imperfect, or spend 2 years on something and deliver something that's going to be imperfect, because either way, you can't guarantee that, every reader will love it and every small hiccup will be ironed out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I know we were talking about the 80-20 principle. I saw the book that you were reading, and it's, I take a lot from that. So basically, 80% of the results you get will come from 20% of the things that you do. And I've never really had that in the back of my head. It's just the natural way that I've discovered it. But I think that's something that's really, really, really important because, you know, I don't spend long on my books, but I make them as good as I can, and then I make the next one better. And it's just been, I've been doing that for 2 years now. And I'm always shocked to see how my writing style is now compared to how it was 2 years ago. So it's fascinating. There's a lot to it that goes into my mentality of putting out books fast. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to, you know, how much can I push myself? Because if I was completely against writing fast, but then, you know, the readers wanted me to just churn stuff out, I wouldn't do it. I'd take my time. But I've always been a very visceral person. Like, I've always just gone straight into something and just gone as fast as I could. And it's crazy to sort of see how well that's worked with something that's usually considered as meticulous as fiction writing. So yeah, I don't know. I always think about it. It's strange, but I found it works the best.
So now obviously your process is quite streamlined and you can write this quickly, but how do you deal with, I guess, the tendency of people to kind of procrastinate and to get distracted? You know, we have our phones with us all the time, right? So how do you deal with these distractions? How do you focus yourself in to the extent that you can, where you can, you know, produce a book every, you know, almost few weeks?
Yeah.
Where, you know, the average uni student or, you know, traditional author is trying to write, and then, you know, the phone goes off, or, you know, I've written like 100 words, I'll go take a break. Like,
yeah.
How do you consistently find the motivation to keep going when, you know, I'm sure at some point you just feel like wanting to stop and have a break?
Well, I mean, I go through that on a daily, hourly basis. Like, that's the main thing that sort of stops me. And it's strange because I set very ambitious goals and I never hit them. So, you know, people come and say, "Oh my God, how have you done, you know, 11 novels in the last 2 years? That's crazy." And, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, but I plan to do 20, you know, I plan to do, yeah. So, you know, it's weird when people sort of pull up how much I've done, but basically on a daily basis, I never hit what I set for myself. So, you know, when I'm writing, I want to do, you know, 5,000-6,000 words every single day. And it's a constant mental battle because it's strange, because I know that it won't stifle my creativity, because I know that I can do that amount in a day and it flows very well and I enjoy it and just a number of things. But at the same time, you know, everyone battles with procrastination, and so, you know, some days I won't get anything done, and it spreads it out more, but it's just that constant. I'm just always really hard on myself. So, you know, it's weird because in the day-to-day life, it feels like I'm not getting anything done, because I want to do, you know, 6,000 words today and I'll do 2,000, and then I'll be like, oh, damn it, you know, I'll get better tomorrow. And then I never actually stop and sit back and sort of look at, whoa, yeah, I have done 11 novels in the last 2 years. So yeah, at the same time, it's like I feel like I'm not getting anything done, but I'm getting a lot done. So I've just always set really high goals and sort of known what I wanted out of life. And I mean, I will always battle with procrastination. I feel like everyone will always battle with procrastination, because you're never going to get everything done that you want to get done. It's like there's a peak potential you of where, you know, you go into a day and you do every single thing that you want to get done that day with like a robot, but no one's like that unless you're, you know, Elon Musk or those type of figures. Like, you're gonna run into roadblocks. It's just how high you set the bar. So, I mean, I run into roadblocks every single day. So I, you know, probably in the moment, I don't feel like a success because I think, oh, I haven't done. But then at the same time, I always have that relief of being able to stop and sit back and go, okay, yeah, I've done a lot. But I just set the bar very, very high, and I'll always be trying to reach that next bar. So that's my approach to it. And yeah, that's just what I've been doing forever. So I think no one will ever hit that peak potential every day, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm I think I'm handling it pretty well so far. So I'm just every day I just try to get a little bit better. That's basically the general principle of it. In terms of writing, I set really high goals, but it's with the knowledge that I know I can do it and I know it will be good content. It's just that mental block of, because I have a lot of people come up to me and, when I'm trying to talk to them about what I'm doing, and they say, oh, you're, if you're not getting enough done, you've probably got writer's block and you need to step back and, you don't want to creatively stifle yourself. And sometimes I agree. I go, oh yeah, that's probably, that's probably what it is. But I know in my head that it's just me not wanting to do it. And if I do it, it'll be exactly the same as if I put it off for 3 days. So that is my approach to everything. I know that if I take the excuse of writer's block and take the excuse of, oh, my creativity is just not there today, like it'll be the exact same content that I produce in a week's time if I leave it that long. It's just me not wanting to do it. So, and when I force myself through that barrier, it's good. It's the exact same content. It's because I plan every book out in advance. So, I know exactly what's going to happen because they're thrillers, because they're action books. They need twists and turns and big set pieces. So I can't just go in and just make it up as I go along. So I know everything that's going to happen. I've done enough books so that I have the subconscious thing in here where I just know that my writing will just flow. So it's just that matter of getting started. And it's a daily battle and everyone goes through it in some capacity if you're wanting to, do big things. But I'm just always approached it like that. It's weird. It's like you're not satisfied in the moment, but when you step back and look at it, you're really, really happy with how far you've come and what you've done. And I feel like that's an important trade-off.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I really like that idea that you suggested, like expecting more of yourself, because even if you only get half of the things you wanted to get done, half of 100 things is still higher than half of 50 things. So
exactly,
by raising the bar, even if you fail, at least you failed better than what you would have done anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's that cheesy romantic quote, shoot for the moon and hopefully you land among the stars. But it's that, but it's more, grounded.
Yeah.
But set the bar really, really high. And if you don't get there, you'll be disappointed, but you'll look back and you'll go, whoa, I did so much more than if I set the bar down here. Like if you set the bar here, you get to here. You're beating all the people who are only aiming for here and reach it and are really happy with themselves. So it's a weird day-to-day thing where, if you're aiming really low and you hit it, like I don't know. It's hard to think about because at the same time you do want to, hit goals that you set for yourself. So
actually be like satisfied.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of the time where I do hit what I set for myself because I've learnt to tone it down a bit. Like, I remember the early days I'd go in and I go, I could physically write 12,000 words today. And every day I'd do that. And I go, let's try and hit it. And I'd get nowhere near. I'd do like 2,000. And I'd think, I'm useless. And then I'd go the next day. But then I realized that was a stupid system to be implementing. So now I aim for sort of 4,000 or 5,000, which is a lot. It's a lot for anyone to write. But I've had the practice for so long that it's sort of slowly becoming a habit. So it's just ingrained in here somewhere. I just wake up and I have the experience of knowing that I have done it for, every day before. So it's just an upward spiral, and I've had to learn to sort of rein things in so that I can hit things, but at the same time I don't hit it every day. So it's that balance between setting a bar so high that you're just never going to hit it and setting something high but still realistic. So that's what I've found.
Of course, man. Now, I want to go back to the success because it's obviously not something that a lot of successful people like to talk about, but it's no secret you have made quite a bit of money off this. As I mentioned earlier, nearly $1 million in revenue off these books. So at age 20, you've got an awesome car. You've bought an apartment. You've bought an apartment out, in the city. that's yours, and you're 20 years old, you know? So how does that amount of financial power impact you psychologically? Because I feel like having access to that much resource could kind of easily lead someone who's young, you know, down a more self-destructive path.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas, you know, you've actually been productive with it and, you know, accumulated these assets and bought yourself a nice place in the city in Brunswick. But, you know, it still must be a very surreal experience for you, like having these things, because a lot of regular everyday people, you know, slave away for so much of their lives just to come even close to where you are now. And at age 20, you've already eclipsed it. So what is the mental state you're in? How does this actually feel, like having money, like having this much success?
Yeah, I don't stop to think about it too much, because if I do, I don't know, it's all just very weird to me. But I think it really helps that I love what I do. And I think that that's what's kept me so grounded, because I feel like, you know, a lot of people that make money at a really young age, it can be doing something that they hate, and then they use the money to escape from whatever, you know, whether that's drugs or whatever. But I don't know, I've just stayed in the routine that I like to do. You know, I try to write every day. I try to always work on myself, and I've just been doing that for as long as I can remember, because I know how important it is. You know, because I mean, I could stop right now and just take years off and just do nothing, but that's not me as a person anyway. Like, I've always wanted to do more, so it's just a process of, yeah, I don't know. I don't stop to think about it too much. Like, yeah, the money's there, but it's not that important to me. You know, I don't do much with it. You know, it's more, I want to do something with my life. And I've found that when I sit around doing nothing, which I can do, I'm comfortable. I'm nowhere near as happy as when I'm doing things that make me uncomfortable, like writing every day as much as I can. That doesn't feel great in the moment, because I'm pushing myself, but in the long term, it's so much more satisfying. So, you know, I had that period of, you know, I had a couple of months where I just did nothing, you know, and I just lay around, and I wrote every now and then, but just put my feet up, and it just didn't do anything for me. I really don't want to rest on my laurels. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, and just keep pushing myself, because that makes me happier than sitting around. And because, you know, I'm more, I guess in the moment I'm happier when I'm sitting around and just on the couch and, you know, not doing anything. But when I stop and sit back and look at that periods of my life, it's not satisfying or beneficial in any way. Like, I just feel sort of, you know, guilty about it. Not guilty, but, you know, I just prefer doing things, and I'm guessing I always will. So I don't know. I mean, this has all happened very young, so I don't really know. I can't really put it into words properly yet, but I'm just staying on the same path and sort of making it up as I go along, and just trying not to go off the rails. And so, but I mean, it's not really me as a person. Like, I've always been pretty, I guess, boring. Like, you know, I don't know. I've always just done the things that I wanted to do to get to another place. So, and I want to keep doing that. I don't want to just be the, you know, 6-book author guy who had some young success. Like, I want to keep writing, and I want to keep getting better and better. And I think I'll just always be wanting to do that. And, you know, there's a few other ideas in my head because I'm so young. You know, I've had the idea of, you know, business opportunities down the line, you know, potentially starting a warehouse gym, or because I'm really into fitness, or just a bunch of stuff, but nothing concrete at the moment. But I've always been that type of person. Like, what's the next thing? So I think that's what sort of kept me separated from going and blowing all the money on stupid stuff. So, you know, yeah, like, I got a cool car, and then it was really cool for, you know, a few weeks, a few months, and now it's just a car. It's like, that's never going to make you happy, like, in the long term. You're never going to sit down and go, I got a Mercedes, my life's done. That's it. That's the peak, Like, it's not even that good. It's just, nicer leather. Like, I mean, if you break it down, like,
Yeah.
you sit in it and you go, okay, it's just a vehicle. Like,
Yeah.
I get happiness from doing things that make me really uncomfortable, that take me to another level personally. So that's my philosophy, I guess. I've never really vocalized it, but that's how I think.
So it sounds like money is more like the tool that helps you keep following your passion.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm sure you would have been just as satisfied barely making a living, but like it'd be like, well, hey, this funds my passions, and I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
It just so happens that it's not just making a living. It's
exactly
quite a bit above that.
I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I'd be just as happy if I was selling 2 copies, but the other part of it is that now that I am successful, it's the fact that so many people are reading and enjoying my stuff. So that's there. And then the money is great, but it shouldn't be the only reason you do things. If it was, I never would have taken the time off. I would have kept doing law because it was the safer option, and slaved away at a firm and worked my way up and become a partner in my 50s and made some good bank. But like, I would have been miserable the whole time. So it's like, I don't know. I just do what makes me happy in the long run. And I always have. So day to day, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but I know that if I go on a lavish spending spree and spend all the money, I'll be so happy in the moment. And then, 30, 60 days after, I'll be sitting back and going, why the fuck did I do that? So it's a balance, and I've just always been that type of person, I guess. And it's kept me grounded.
My man. Well,
thank you.
So what does the future of Matt Rogers look like now? Like, sitting where you are now, knowing that 2 years ago you couldn't have possibly imagined to sit where you are now and have this level of success. What does the next 2 years, the next 4 years, and the next 10 years look like for you?
So I have a long-term vision, and screw it. I'll vocalize it here because I figure like if I
exclusive.
Here we go. This is Matt Rogers exclusive. I figure if I put this out there and actually do it,
it exists and you're accountable for it.
Exactly. So if I'm not there in 3 years, come back to this video. But so basically my whole goal at the moment is to get better at writing and to put more stuff out. So I mean, that's what I've been doing for the last year, but last 2 years. I have this long-term plan to just keep writing. I'm working on 2 series at the moment, so I'm bouncing back and forth between the Will Slater series and the Jason King files. So I have 3 books in the Slater series and 3 books in the King files. So I just plan to keep doing that for as long as I have ideas, because at the moment I have no shortage of ideas. And then I have sort of a long-term vision to use these funds that are going to build up over the next few years to build and start and operate a warehouse gym. So I would build it from the ground up. I would have all new equipment, and it'd be called Rogers Gym 24/7. And so I'd build that, and then I would use that as my office space as well. So it would be sort of like a headquarters for me, an office where I can come in and write, and then also a functioning, operating warehouse gym as well. So, because I've gone to a warehouse gym for the last 2 years that started 2 years ago, and it's so popular. It's Hammer House Gym in Cheltenham, and I just left there actually because I moved into the city. But they sort of gave me the inspiration to potentially do this down the line. And it'd be a big commitment, but it would be sort of, a double-edged sword, where it would be my main headquarters and it would also be a functioning business. So that's the dream. I don't know how realistic it is. I think if I put my mind to it, I can do it, but I sort of think that about everything. But it's a long-term sort of vision of mine to have my own HQ, to have my own sort of compound where, I can go out and work out and come back and do writing. And so it's half a profitable business and half sort of my space. So that's the long-term plan. See how it goes. Yeah. But at the moment, it's just writing. I'm always going to be writing, even if I do these other things like the gym and the whatever. The writing will always be at the core of it. So, yeah, I'm pretty simple. I just do the same stuff. But yeah, a few long-term aspirations, but just keep writing for the next few years, see how things go, and see if I have the working capital to start this gym project. But I haven't actually talked about this publicly anywhere. So if it happens, it happens. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, well, it's good to have that long-term dream to just kind of keep you on track for the time being.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the end of the interview now. And before we head off, I just wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for any other creative people out there who might be listening, who, you know, might have a dream, but it might involve a level of risk or a level of uncertainty where they're not sure whether or not they should commit, or they don't even know how to get started? What would you say to them?
I would say that the hardest thing you'll ever do is making that tiny little switch in your brain from I have this idea to I'm actually going to execute on it. And, you know, it gets brought up a million times in self-help books, and, you know, it's sort of a meme at this point, but it really is the most important thing. It was, I had the idea for the book series, and I'd self-publish it, and you know, had all these grand things, and the most important part was that one day in the middle of my first law semester where I went, I'm actually just going to do this. And then it's that. And I think if you can get past that mental sort of barrier, that mental block, and just put things into reality, no matter how good or bad they are, you will do a lot more than you think you can. So I'm very passionate about it because, and it's always been my approach. You know, people go, oh, take some time off after, you know, you've done 6 books, and nope, I'm just gonna, because I have these ideas, and then it's just that sort of hesitancy to go, oh, you know, I don't have to start another series yet. You know, the first one did really well, I can take time off. But deep down, I know that the only thing that's stopping me from starting another series is those excuses to go, oh, you know, you've done pretty well so far. So it's that, and if you're starting from nothing, like I did, you know, 2 years ago, it's just that first step where you go, I'm going to put something into reality. I might get criticized for it, you know, and that's also the main thing is, you know, you will probably cop some shit for it. And if it's the first thing you've done, or one of the first things you've done, whether that be writing, whether that be any creative industry, anything, you know, if you have a business idea, you're going to get criticized for it by someone. And if you let that stop you, then you're never going to get anywhere. You know, you gotta sort of suck it up, go, okay, I might get criticized, but I'll get better and I'll keep evolving. And that's just life. Just go into an upward spiral. And that's why it's surreal to me when people say, oh, you've done all this stuff and you've, you know, sold this X amount of copies and X number of pages read. And it's like, yeah, but it all just built from this one little thing of me deciding to do it. And then I just did one, criticized, did one. It's a spiral like this. And I just went up, and that's it. So yeah, take the first step, figure out you're going to get criticized and accept it, and build momentum through making habits. So the first time you do it will be the hardest time, and then it'll get easier because you've done it before. So take that first step, get the momentum building, and then just keep going. And it might take 10 weeks, might take 10 years. It doesn't matter. Just get started. And that's basically all I've got to say on that.
Hell yeah, man.
Thank
you.
you.
Do you want to let people know at home where they can catch your stuff out if they're interested in it?
Yeah. If you just go to Amazon, type in Matt Rogers, you'll find me. That's it.
All right. Well, that's the end of the first episode of Launch Control. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll catch you for the next one. See you later.